When powerful people accuse a religion or a race of being a danger to society, what should Christians do? When our president tells us that Muslims threaten our peace and safety, how should we respond? What would Jesus do? Recently, our president retweeted 3 videos purporting to show Muslims engaged in violent acts that threaten the West. How would Jesus respond to this? Well, I believe he would want to know the facts of the case. He once said in John 7:24, "Don't judge by appearances, but judge by righteous judgment." Looking more closely at this, the facts in this case are: the president retweeted videos posted by a British woman convicted of hate crimes, including abusing a Muslim woman on the streets. The videos themselves don't actually show what they are purported to show. One was supposedly a Muslim immigrant abusing and beating another boy with crutches in Holland. But investigation into the video reveals that both of the boys had been born in Holland, and it didn't involve a migrant. The boy carrying out the crime was charged and convicted of a crime. The other 2 videos aren't actually recent videos at all. They're from about 4 years ago. One shows the destruction of an image of the Virgin Mary. Took place somewhere in a small town in Syria, hardly a threat to religion in the West. The other was scenes of violence in Egypt, somebody being thrown off a wall and being beaten. No context is given. This was part of the violence that was taking place on the streets of Egypt during an uprising, a civil outbreak of violence in 2013. None of these videos fairly show violence being directed towards the West. It's a statement or a case of really false news, false facts being set forward to instigate concern and hatred towards a particular segment of our society. Some have said, well, but these videos do give us a true insight into the threats that we face in confronting the Muslim world and our Muslim neighbors. But Christ also had a saying that I think relates here: "By their fruits ye shall know them." What is the behavior and fruit of Islam in the West today? Do most Islamic scholars and leaders support or oppose violence? Of course, Islam has had its share of violence in the past and in the present. We know about the jihads and the wars in the Middle East, the stoning of criminals, women caught in adultery. Of course, these things are not defensible, but all religions have their checkered past. What about Christianity and the Inquisition? Christianity and the Crusades? The question is, do we allow Christianity to be defined by those things? And in fairness, do Muslim scholars and leaders allow current-day Islam to be defined by those things? Many people aren't familiar with an important document that came out more than 10 years ago. The Amman Declaration is a statement calling for tolerance and unity in the Muslim world. It was issued in 2004 by Abdullah II, the King of Jordan. And the next year it was endorsed by more than 200 Islamic scholars from 50 Muslim countries. This statement, which is worth researching on the internet, makes the profound claim and supports it with quotations from the Quran that Muslims have a duty to tolerate both other Muslims as well as other Christian and Jewish believers. In fact, this document is so clear in its statement, I want to share at least a couple of short quotes with you. On religious grounds, it says, on moral grounds, we denounce the contemporary concept of terrorism, which is associated with wrongful practices wherever they come from, including assaults on peaceful civilians, killing prisoners and the wounded, unethical practices such as the destruction of buildings and ransacking of cities. These despotic attacks on human life transgress the law of God, and we denounce them. As the Quran says, take not life which God hath made sacred, except by way of justice and law. What these scholars and leaders of Islam are saying is that the terrorism that we see in the West, attacks on civilians, suicide bombers, attacks on innocent populations, are forbidden by the Quran and are not supported by the Muslim leadership. Now, are there Muslims that disagree? Of course there are. But the vast majority of them are motivated by political motives, social motives, motives of poverty. The question of Islam and terrorism is much less clear than some people want to make out. And I want to talk more specifically about this factual background, and that's what we'll cover in part 2 of our video series. And that is Protest and Liberty Today.